Hello, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, host of Chatting with Betsy on Passion World Talk Radio. Jeanne White is the producer. This is where you will find the unvarnished truth from myself and my guest. And I have a very special guest today who wrote about his truth and what he went through with his dad. I would like to introduce my guest, Brian Morris. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Betsy. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. I want to tell the audience the name of your book is How to Wipe Your Dad's Butt and Other Things His Doctor Won't Tell You About Alzheimer's. Love it. I love that title. And your website, another great title, wipeyourdadsass.com. I said, this is a man after my own heart, blunt, and I would like for you to tell about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a Navy brat. My dad was in the Navy. And, of course, I grew up on the East Coast of the United States. He was a submariner. And so because of that, we were bounced up and down from Florida all the way up to Connecticut. Florida because he went to SEAL scuba school down in Key West, but mostly South Carolina, Virginia, and Connecticut with the submarine service. And then after he retired from the Navy, we all settled in Alabama. And I was a police officer there, and then I graduated from I was going to school full-time during the day, and I was a police officer at night. And once I graduated, I started working in an engineering company and then worked for NASA for a while, then owned an ad agency. Went back into the nuclear world after that, nuclear power engineering, and then I took care of my dad, and then I wrote the book. Here we are. That was in a nutshell.
Well, how long did you take care of your dad for?
Well, he started showing signs back in 2007, 2006, 7, 8 time frame. Full-time started taking care of him in 2015. I was working at Curtiss-Wright, which is an engineering company, and I left that job to take care of him full-time in May of 2015. And he passed away in February of 2016. But he needed really hands-on care from about 2012 on, and my mom and I worked together on that, and it was, it's a long story, but full-time, 100% dedicated, 24/7 started in May of 2015 until he passed away. And I did want to say something, I'm sorry to interrupt, but, the title of the book, the reason on Amazon it says How to Wipe Your Dad's Butt rather than How to Wipe Your Dad's Ass is because they won't let me advertise it or boost it or promote it with the word ass, which irritates me to no end. But the real title of the book is How to Wipe Your Dad's Ass and Other Things His Doctor Won't Tell You About Alzheimer's. But I did have to tone it down a little bit to get past the censors out there.
I thought that was the name of your book, and I looked at Amazon, and it had How to Wipe Your Dad's Butt. And even the cover of it has butt on there. But Brian, I have to tell you, you are an official kick-ass caregiver warrior. And I thank you for taking care of your dad and writing a book and speaking your truth. How did you come about writing your book and why?
So I, let's see. As we started the journey of dealing with Dad's Alzheimer's, I remember when he was diagnosed, my first reaction was absolute anger. I was mad, not at the diagnosis, but I was mad at him. You know what I mean? It was just like, how could you'd have to understand things, I guess, a little bit. He was getting more and more ornery, and by that time, it was really difficult to deal with him anyway. And my first thought was, oh, God, now what are we going to have to put up with for the next few years? It's just going to get worse and worse. Oddly enough, my prediction was incorrect. I mean, yes, his physical and emotional needs deteriorated. I mean, it got worse, but his attitude after he crossed a certain level, he kind of leveled off and was more like a little boy than he was a grumpy old man. So that changed. But as we started the journey, to get to your question, of course we were overloaded with questions. We wanted to know everything we could about the disease, and more to the point, and to be pragmatic, we wanted to know what was going to happen. What are we going to have to do? How should we behave? How do we take care of him? What things do we need to buy? What what accommodations do we have to have in the house? What should we feed him? How obstinate should we be about making him exercise? All these questions we had, and how to actually nurse him. I mean, I'm not a nurse. I don't have any medical training at all. I mean, my only medical training is as a first responder back from being a police officer, and then dating a nurse. You know what I mean? It's never any formal training. I've seen a lot of medical things by virtue of my background, but I had questions, and nobody would answer my questions. They were always very nebulous things, answers. And just like the beginning of the book starts with a quote from one of my doctors. He actually said, I really don't know what to tell a caregiver. Just do your best and try to cope. I'm like, really? That's it? That's the sum total of your advice? I was angry at the doctor at that point. I couldn't believe his answer was so
vague.
Wimpy.
Right?
Well, vague, but wimpy. I mean, if he was too much of a wuss to just answer the question and say, okay, these are the things that are going to happen, knowing full good and well, right, that the disease progresses and there's certain behaviors coming down the pipe. And I've talked to a couple of elder law attorneys, and, they confirmed what I was thinking, which is the reason the doctors don't answer those questions is because they're scared to death of being sued. It's all about liability, right? If they say something that turns out not to be true, or they don't give enough of a complete answer and something happens, then they're afraid they're going to be sued for malpractice. And it's really frustrating. So
very frustrating.
Yeah, and
very frustrating.
I've done a few of the Facebook groups where I'm watching these comments come, and people struggling with their day-to-day. I mean, they're in the thick of it here. And I realize these people aren't getting the answers they seek either. It's the same thing across the board. And so as much as anything, I really wanted to answer that elephant in the room question: what am I looking at? What is Alzheimer's going to be? And that's what the book is. It is a, in-your-face, unsugar-coated, unvarnished, smack in the face. This is Alzheimer's. And here are some things that you can do to try to prepare for it. And these are, everything from, how to wipe. Literally, there's instructions on how to wipe a grown man's butt in there, but there's also instructions about what to look for. If you suspect your loved one of having some kind of dementia and you haven't had them diagnosed yet, that's probably that's chapter 2. There's all kinds of things in there, I think, that I hope are helpful. Even just being prepared legally and financially for it, right?
Yes.
And then have you had the chance to read the book yet?
I did not read the book, Brian, because I don't have Kindle app.
Oh, I should.
Where I could.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did read the prologue. Is that what you call it? Am I pronouncing it correctly? And I could just tell by what was written that this is the type of book I wish was out there 20 years ago for me, even 10 years ago. Yeah. And I found also, and I'm a licensed practical nurse, Brian, and I didn't know one thing about Alzheimer's when I took care of my mother-in-law. Not one thing did I know. And there wasn't the support 20 years ago as there is now, not the internet highway. Right. I'm just curious, did you belong to any support groups, either online or a physical, going to a support group?
No, I started to go to a local support group locally, and I don't remember the name of it, and I'm not going to say out loud where the location was because I don't want to besmirch anybody. But I went to one meeting and never went back. It was at a particular time where I was, I don't know, I was unhappy with something that I was having to deal with about my dad, and all I can say is that I don't know. I wasn't comfortable in the room. Maybe it's just me, but I just didn't really feel that the level of support. It just wasn't what I expected. So I'm not going to badmouth that group, nor am I going to say all groups are bad, because like I said, I've since joined some support groups from the perspective of somebody who's been there, done that, to try to help people, as opposed to, being in the thick of it and needing that help. So, maybe my vision back then was just a little cloudy.
Well, you're not the first person who I have heard that from, that they didn't like a group. Some people are comfortable at a group, some aren't. I myself never went to a physical support group because it just wasn't at a time that I could go. But when I went on Facebook, I went crazy joining Facebook groups and weeded out which I liked and what I didn't like. Then I started my own. I want to tell the listeners, get online, read this book. Don't even walk to your computer. Run to this computer and get this book, because you need to hear the truth, the honest truth. And this is from a caregiver who's there, not someone talking out of their rear end, not some teacher who never had experience. This is a book written by a caregiver who went through the same things that you might be going through, listeners. People tell me I should write a book, but I'm not a writer. I'm a talker. What would you like people to take away, Brian, from the book that you didn't know, like the knowledge? I would assume that, but what else would you like for a person to take away from that book?
That's a real good question. I think the takeaways are the first and foremost thing about it is that it's the absolute truth. I mean, it's disgusting. I freely admit that the title of the book is offensive. I find the disease offensive, and I wanted it to be kind of in a way a slap in the face, and not to the caregiver, but just to anyone who doubts or thinks that Alzheimer's isn't quite that bad. I don't, I can tell in support groups that I'm a part of that when somebody new comes in, they're deer in the headlights just like we are, and they're looking for the real deal. Now, if you look at the covers and titles of other books, they're all pictures of flowers and gardens and sunsets and all this nice, flowery, romantic stuff. That is not Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is awful. It's horrible. It's terrible. It is a living daily horror story, watching your loved one disappear into oblivion and then finally die. And,
absolutely.
In the prologue, excuse me for a second, I'm getting a little emotional here.
That's okay. I understand. That's okay. I understand, Brian. I totally agree with you. I showed my husband's journey. I showed him on his deathbed, and I said, this is what Alzheimer's does to a human being. And, I didn't care who got offended, and I still don't care who gets offended.
Well, yeah, that's it, right? I mean, I've had two people tell me that they were offended by the title, and I said, have you ever cared for an Alzheimer's patient? And the answer was, well, no. I said, well, then I don't care. I really don't care that you're offended. because it is an offensive disease, and at least it got your attention. Now you know that the disease is, I can promise you that the disease is as disgusting as the title. And this is one of the things, too, is I this is a hard thing to say, but as a caregiver of a dementia or Alzheimer's patient, every day you wake up with the hope that today's going to be a little bit better, and that hope is dashed every single day. It's destroyed. It's not going to get better. It only gets worse and worse and worse until the very end. And at the very end, you're so wrapped up in the day-to-day struggle that it's a relief at that point when they pass away. And it's not a bad thing. It's just like, at the end of the book, I described that moment when it sunk in for my mom and I that it was over. And we were so exhausted, we couldn't speak. I mean, there was just nothing to say. What do we do tomorrow? Yeah. None of that stuff. Or, how should we plan? Or, there was like a few years before, several years before, in 1999, my sister was killed, and we never had that silence, if you will. We never had that moment where we contemplated. Where we were speechless. We were always, of course, it was a different issue. It was unexpected, but it was. And I've been to other funerals and other deaths, and other family members had died. But it was so different when Dad passed. When we got home from hospice, it was just like all the wind had gone out of our sails. We were done. You know what I mean? There was just just this emptiness.
It's a relief.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's so surreal.
Yes, absolutely.
So the things that I want people to take away from the book is, first off, as I've said a couple of times already, this is the truth. It's unvarnished. It's got the profanity in it that, my dad's an ex-sailor. He was in the Navy, and I'm an ex-cop. So, brace yourself for the profanity. Nobody's going to out-cuss me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I 100% of the dialogue is absolutely the way it was, as best I can remember it. And so first off, it's the truth. And the second thing is, I really do hope that there's some help in there, on how to prepare for things. Even if I ask my doctor, for instance, so chapter 1, which is, I don't know how grotesque I can be or profane I can be on your channel. I don't want to. It's titled Poop.
Just no F words.
Right. Yeah, you got it. So it's titled Poop, but that's the sugar-coated version of it. It actually begins with an F. I'll leave it at that, right?
Okay.
But in chapter 1, I described the need to fill a diaper bag and what to put in the diaper bag and why you need it, right? Because the first time I had to take care of my dad in that way, we didn't have a diaper bag, and I was way underprepared for what I had to deal with in that bathroom. I was not ready. And after that, I made sure that we were ready every day, and it's just like going out with a baby. You never forget your diaper bag, right?
Yes.
If my doctor would have just said, hey, here's something I think you should do. You'll thank me later for it. Get a diaper bag or a big tote and fill it with these things and take it with you wherever you go. I would hug the man. You know what I mean? I would have told him, wow, that's great. Thank you very much. I never thought of that. So those are the kind of little tidbits of information that I throw in there that I hope really help somebody get prepared for what they're about to deal with. So.
Well, I think it will prepare them, Brian. When I went, it seems like it's a universal thing with caregivers. Now maybe it might be a little bit better. You weren't prepared. The doctor didn't tell you what to prepare for. The doctor didn't tell my husband what to prepare for his mom. Same thing with my mom, with my dad. My dad had dementia, and the same thing with Matt. By the time Matt came with his diagnosis, I was a little seasoned, but everyone is different. And the diaper bag, excellent idea, because with Matt, I had to have a diaper bag when we went out, and I had to have our son with me to take him to the bathroom because I couldn't go into a men's room with him. He can't go into the women's room with me. And then you realize, you know what, they need more family bathrooms out there in the malls. Yes, everywhere. It is a problem. And I find, Brian, that it's caregivers like you and it's caregivers like me and other people who step out and speak and help another caregiver, because we're telling them from our experience and we're speaking the truth. And this is why I say that it's the veteran caregivers who need to help the newbies, I call them, navigate these waters of dementia so they don't drown like we did.
Right. Exactly. And I, it's been 4 years since my dad passed, and quite frankly, I've been remiss in being involved with it because I guess I just had to get over it. I don't know, but for whatever reason, I didn't go into the abyss. I didn't want to. But now that the book is written, it's like, okay, now I really need to be involved. I feel compelled to be involved to try to help these folks with fresh diagnosis and their caregivers and say, all right, get your poop together. This is what you got to do. You know what I mean?
Right. This is made me think of this, Brian. I used to go into my car. I still go into my car to do videos to raise awareness in early onset because I was a very angry caregiver. And one of my people who follow me, she lives in France or Belgium, and she said, I expected, flowers and all this flowery stuff, and I hear Betsy say, get your head out of your butt and educate yourself. And she's glad that she did, because books like yours help educate a caregiver. And I see this, I belong to many groups. I see this in groups. They don't know where to even start. They don't know what to do. A book like yours comes along, and I think every caregiver group should recommend your book, because even though I didn't read it, I could tell that it's what needs to be read. I wish there was a book like that 20 years ago. I really do. And go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about that after we get off the
sure.
Real quick. Yeah.
I would appreciate that. I tried to get it, but I couldn't get it without the Kindle app. But I just think that it's just so awesome for someone to write a book like yours, not afraid to show their truth, not afraid to speak their truth. And I encourage this. You're an advocate, Brian, whether you realize it or not. And we need more people like you, Gary Joseph LeBlanc, to step up, and you do, and to educate. Education is what I say a caregiver needs. I think caregivers, should be given a course.
I would have loved that back then. I don't know that I would have had time for it, but I would have loved something to that effect. Even if it was something that, that we might be onto something here. Maybe we could create. I've got a YouTube channel for the book. Maybe we could create some kind of videos to work on that. But I did want to mention, I listened to the interview from Gary that you had. I just listened to it actually this morning, and I haven't read his book, but I'm going to look for it, because his is the after effects of dementia care.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen anything that addressed that problem, which, now it was like it smacked me in the face like a sledgehammer when I saw the title. I thought, wow, I really missed something here in my book. And because I can remember it took us weeks, Mom and I, weeks before we were comfortable going more than 30 minutes out of the house. You know what I mean? And there was a definite moment when we looked at each other and said, why do we have to go back home? Dad's not there. It's okay for us to go to Sarasota, which is, an hour and a half away kind of thing, or 2 hours. It's okay to take a day trip to Orlando. Nobody's going to care. You know what I mean? And
right.
It took a while to get out of that caregiver mindset and realize it's okay to live your life now. And I think that book is just, like I said, title alone, it sounds like it's spot on. So.
Yes, I wish that I had read that book also in my caregiving. My husband just passed away in January of this year. And you're like, who am I now? What do I do with myself now? And,
you forget who you were.
Yeah. Yes. That's and then I don't know if you've, went through your mind, but most caregivers, they go over I should have, I would have, I could have, maybe if I did this would have turned out this way. And people can drive themselves crazy, and don't second guess yourself, caregivers. They'll drive yourself crazy. It's not worth your energy. And it's true, and it does feel like a relief when they pass.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, there's so many things to say to a caregiver out there. I saw a comment today from somebody who posted that her loved one had complained to a friend that she was being held against her will or something like that. It was one of those crazy moments. And the friend was like, oh, gosh, I'm sorry your daughter's involved. You know what I mean? She shouldn't even be doing this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, boy, did I have to go through that with my family as well. It's just one of those things where you've got people that don't, from on the outside looking in, don't have a clue what it's like to care for somebody with this disease. And it's so easy to attack the caregiver. You know what I mean?
Yes.
My aunt did that. My uncle did that. When I moved my parents down here to Florida, holy cow, did I take a ration of grief a mile wide and 10 miles long. And I'm like, well, you said you were going to help. You didn't. And here we are. You know what I mean? So this has to happen. So, yeah, and it was crazy to me. So, I feel for caregivers now. It's just like, man, I'm going to shut up about it. But that's the truth, Brian. No, that's true. I tell caregivers, and I have done videos on this, you have to set your boundaries with your family. You have to. Right. And the ones who criticize and judge, they're the ones who aren't doing anything, so they need to sit down and be quiet. And you need to tell them that. And it's okay to say bye-bye to toxic family. Right, exactly. I can remember my aunt who got so mad that I was moving mom and dad down here. She was mad. She said, well, I'm going to help them. I said, really? They've been here for 2 years. Let me ask you this. How many times have you wiped my dad's ass in the last year? Because had lived away for a year. I said, I've been up here 4 times since then, since I moved away, and I've had to do it every single time I've been up here. How many times have you done it in the same year? The answer was none. So then you don't have a dog in this fight. You know what I mean? You need to sit down and shut up. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Oh, yes. You're a man after my own heart, Brian, because that's how I am. I'm just like that. I want to send my condolences to you, Brian, on your sister's passing. And you brought out a very good point, Brian, and I want to bring this up. people who had that sudden shock of someone passing unexpectedly are hit with a double whammy, I call it. You're not expecting it, so you're grieving and you're dealing with the shock. People like you and I, we saw the gradual deterioration. We knew it was going to happen. We had closure, but yet, we still grieve afterwards. But I think it's two different types of grief, and they both need to be addressed. I see a second book in your future, Brian. You could write a book about what you experienced after caregiving.
Yeah, well, I have another one that I've written 2 chapters on about my sister's death that I still can't write. And I get so choked up and angry about it that I physically can't write it. I need a ghostwriter to come in and, help me do it, but I'm not taking the time. That's another abyss that I don't want to look into too deeply.
And you will, well, when you're ready, Brian, you will. Yeah. When the time is right, you'll know, and your book will be written either by yourself or a ghostwriter. But people don't understand grief. Let me ask you this, Brian. Have you experienced, when you lost your dad, did people run away from you because of your grieving? They were uncomfortable?
I don't think so with my dad. I have experienced that after my sister, and I don't want to dwell on this, but my sister was murdered. So people didn't know how to deal with that, right? It was too hideous, I guess, and the anger and the outrage and the emotions and the grief and all that, like you said, you're hit with it all at once. And I had people that put distance between themselves and me because of that, and it was very isolating. So I know exactly what you're talking about. But with my dad, we had been with him basically exclusively. I'd left my job, but that was isolating enough. The only people that I knew in town really were from my job, so I didn't really know anybody else at the time. So I really didn't experience that. Instead, it was, I had to go out and create work, find revenue, and basically started another business as an independent consultant. And that required me to get out and network, and those are my friends now. They didn't know me before. They didn't know the issue with my dad. They just hear about it. It's past tense to them, so they never really had to deal with the emotions of it. And like we just said, it's kind of a relief at the end. You've gone, there's what are the 5 stages of grief? With dementia or a disease, a degenerative disease of any sort, I think you go through those 5 stages during the process, and then when it's over, the only thing left is the grief and the relief. You know what I'm saying? So it was. Oh, yes. So it was a very short cycle after my dad passed away. As far as the grieving process, I think it was a sigh of, okay, now we can grieve and move on. But that's just one man's opinion, so who am I?
Well, no, that's true. And I want to make it clear to people, because some people misunderstand me, and they might misunderstand when we say we're relieved, it doesn't mean we're happy that the person is gone from our lives. We're happy they're no longer suffering, because we saw them suffer for so long. My husband, 10 years. And, at the end, you just want them to close their eyes and go. And actually encourage my husband to go. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I told Matt, close your eyes and go fly with the angels.
I did the same thing for my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was looking right. Our eyes were locked, looking into each other's eyes. So I just stroked his head and told him it was okay.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it's not a happy relief. It's just relief. Yeah.
It's just relief. And we all grieve differently, and we all grieve in a different way. And I was outside on a shopping line waiting to get to the store, and I don't know, I started talking to this woman. She said her husband passed away 32 years ago. She still cries. And she said that, that the hole is there, but you get a little used to the pain, if that makes any sense to people. It's not that you ever forget about your loved one. You don't. We'll always miss our loved ones, always.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things, too, that we learned after Tracy's death was, there's a new normal. Things never go back to the way they were. There's just a new normal, and you learn to cope with the new way of life. And, that's just necessary, I guess, for life to continue, right?
Yes, that's for sure. And this pandemic put a real glitch into my plans anyway for what I wanted to do, but they'll come around again. Brian, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today. The time goes by so fast. Is there anything else you would like to tell the listeners that you might have forgotten and it just popped up into your head?
Yeah, well, if you give me just a second. Yeah, first off, I really appreciate anyone who purchases the book. But even if you don't and you're just looking for resources, I wish they would visit the website, wipeyourdadsass.com. It's wipeyourdadsass.com. There's a page of resources for caregivers, and there is I've just compiled a listing of Amazon list items that are common for caregivers. Everything from butt wipes to lift chairs and walking and anti-fall accessories and stuff like that. And I've put them all in one little local area. So if you're looking for resources, I hope you'll just take a look there and see if anything there helps you out. I hope it does.
And is your book just available at Amazon, or is it available in other places?
Right now, it's just a Kindle book on Amazon. You do have to have a Kindle app, or you can I think you can read it using a computer. I think there's a way to do that with Kindle. I've always used my cell phone or an iPad or something. But you can download the Kindle app. It's free. You don't pay a subscription to have Kindle. You just pay for the book, book per book that you buy. There is a subscription service you can pay for, and you can just read as many books as you want or something according to the subscription service. But I don't typically recommend that unless you just read 100 books a month kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's real simple. Just download the app. You do have to purchase it online, and the print version is ready. But I want to see how popular this thing gets on Kindle before I try to incur the cost of having it printed, because I'm pretty sure I'll have to do it myself.
Oh, very well. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Listeners.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed this.
Oh, you're welcome. And please feel free to come back again. We could discuss something else.
Hey,
there's a lot to discuss. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Folks, you're welcome. I want to encourage everyone, run to your computer, your iPad, and get this e-book, How to Wipe Your Dad's Ass and Other Things His Doctor Won't Tell You About Alzheimer's, because they will not tell you much at all. This is Betsy Wurzel, host of Chatting with Betsy at Passion World Talk Radio. I want to thank everyone for listening. You can listen to me on Spreaker. You can listen to me on Google, iHeart, if you missed any of this audio cast. Also on YouTube. And I want everyone to stay home, stay safe. I want to thank Jeanne White for writing the blog. Please read the blog. Brian's information will be on there. Please share this audio cast, share the blog, and be blessed till I talk to you again. Bye-bye now.